So again, my name is Josh. I work at lendingclub.com. We're the biggest purveyor of personal unsecured credit in the domestic United States. We have a lot of transactions, a lot of business going through our APIs. So as a full stack engineer, of course, I'm in tune with quality, security, and things of that nature. I'm always looking for the best solution to solve our company's quality problems. And so I came up with this way to kind of, I don't want to say bastardize, but misappropriate Selenium. Selenium is the best tool out there, the way I see it. It allows you to stay on the top of the pyramid and do end-to-end testing. But the misappropriation that I thought of came when I wanted to do integration testing. And so what I did was I came up with a way to perform integration tests by leveraging Selenium's and the driver's capabilities to talk to the browser using a technique that I call the data island. Now the data island is a little emoji there. It's really cute, and that's why I put it there. And I've got some rants. Like this will be like the MS Paint of presentations. So hopefully it'll put a smile on your face and get you thinking, and maybe you'll throw some empanadas my way to shut me up at some point. Okay, so this is really boring. Oh, well, how come that didn't show up? Hello? Next slide. Is that not showing up? Technical issue? Why? All right, so. All right. Maybe I need to do that? No? Okay, why don't we just, we'll just share the, and then we'll reshare. We'll just share the desktop, and you guys can see the notes. Okay, and then I won't have notes, and that's fine. That's a perfectly fine outcome. Okay, so I'm gonna wing it. Okay, no notes. We're doing it hot, as what was his name? We're doing it live. We're doing it live. Okay, so agile testing, that pyramid is freaking boring, right? Okay, I'm sick of seeing the stupid pyramid, right? What does the pyramid say? It says 70% of your tests should be in unit tests, 20% should be in integration tests, acceptance tests or end-to-end tests should be 10%. Okay, I'm an engineer that's a full stack engineer. All I care about one thing. I care about two things. Our users come to our site and they get a good experience. And the second is the users that come to our site, they come to our site safely. I want the company to be protected from a very hostile environment, and that is the web. Okay, the browser is a weapon. Yes, the browser is a weapon. It is not a tool, okay? And I want to stress that enough. So I don't really care about where the tests reside. All I care about is the end result, that the company can make money and it can make money safely, and the distribution of how that's done is inconsequential. Okay, so I just made a little rant with the MS Paint emojis. So enjoy that. Okay, so Selenium drives end-to-end really well. I love using it, but I also love integration tests. So why not both? Right? Why not both? You can use Selenium in order to create the API integration tests you're looking for. Now, traditionally, in your company, right, let's say you're a Java shop, right? And you're building all your backend services through Java, and you're using Java Spring. What do you use in order to do integration tests? Like you have a service network of microservices where you have an orchestrator service that talks to service 1 and service 2. What is generally the framework that's driving the integration tests? Usually it's going to be in Java, right? You're going to like garner some context, then you're going to like connect to the orchestrator service, and then you're going to fire a method off to the orchestration service, and then You're going to watch to see what happens and then get positive assertions, negative assertions, happy paths, and evil tests and stuff like that, right? What this does is this allows you to actually use Selenium, the tool that you're using to drive the front end, to actually hit all these services as well. Okay, so again, the integration tests, they consist of a headless zombie driver, aka Java. Boring, freaking boring. I'm done with it. Okay, conscripts multiple systems that work together on a network, right? You've got microservices talking to each other, and ensures the multiple systems do their jobs through formal front door and side channel checks. Now, side channel check is like, hey, you've got like this integration test framework that has the capability of going to connect to the database and like verify that after you fire and snap a method on microservice 1, that the database can be assured that it has the correct values. Now, that may not be its primary function, but you can still do that. That's one of the jobs that you can do in that framework. In Selenium, when you use this technique that I'm going to show you, we kind of eliminate the side channel stuff, and that's kind of okay. But I'm just, in the spirit of full disclosure, what you get is you get a reappropriation of Selenium where I believe the right effort and right language is being used to perform integration tests for the web, by the web, with the web. Okay, so this is an slide of Bill Joy with a purposeful, horrible aspect ratio. Okay, Bill Joy is really great. He created VI. VI is freaking awesome. Tastes great, less filling, Emacs? I don't know. All right, so why did I pick Bill Joy, right? Bill Joy had this really great saying. He said, JavaScript is the gray goo of the internet. Okay? Well, give me a brush and give me that gray goo because I'm spreading it around. I love it. Okay? And so I don't really care. I'm adopting JavaScript. I want to proselytize. I want to espouse. I want to evangelize the use of JavaScript because more and more networks and services are actually using that. So I love JavaScript. If your front end is using JavaScript, great. You should use a tool that uses JavaScript. And you can get your developers who are actually writing in JavaScript to actually write your tests for you. And if you have Node.js backend developers, then you can get them to write Node.js tests on an integration test level framework. Okay, so thank you, Bill Joy. He's great. He also created Curses. You know what Curses is? Forget it. All right. Curses is this VT100 way to do animations in Windows. Okay. VT100 is a terminal emulation. All right, I'm old. All right. So how do we actually accomplish this? Okay. So the first step is the browser context is established with your application, right? So it just like logs in, right? That's the first thing it does. Like goes to the main site and it like logs in. And then the second thing that happens is it initiates a test on an API with the logged in browser session. So then it's like, let's say you've got this method, right? That says like, pretend you're like doing a to-do list, right? And the to-do list, you need to like log in, garner a session, and guess what happens? The browser gets a cookie saying that you're okay from that point onward. Then you want to add a to-do item. And there's a back-end JSON service that's just sitting there, and you hit it. So you ask Selenium on behalf of the browser to call that endpoint. And then that endpoint's got a response, right? So it's got inputs and outputs. So basically, you ask the browser to snap that method with some input. Then it creates a data island, which is basically a parking space inside the actual browser, okay, inside the DOM. Okay, so it writes to the DOM, a parking space. Then it fires off the method using the context of the browser. Okay, and the browser context has what? It already has the authentication session. It has everything it needs in order to play along with the front door of the API. And then it talks to the server. Then the server responds to the browser with a response. Now the response is a JSON payload typically in today's modern frameworks. It's not XML anymore, thank God. And then automation waits asynchronously for the parking space to be hydrated. And then the test program can then pick that up. Okay, and then you can make your assertions that way. All right, so we'll go over this again just really quickly. So browser makes a request, creates a parking space for the results. It makes the authenticated request because it has the session info, and then the data comes back. It fills out the parking space, and then the automation picks up the data and then makes assertions based on that. Okay. So why did I do that? That is an integration test. We use the head, detach the head, and then use the technique to actually perform AJAX request on an API. We're not automating the UI. Okay, this is not that. This is making requests using the browser context on HTTP transport calls like AJAX. Okay, so here's a demo. So again, my background is a full stack engineer, and the thing I care about is users. I need to see our users get through. I need to see my company make money. I don't really care kind of sometimes even how it's done, but I need the end user experience to be flawless. And I take these things as mantras, right? So number one, if you can go to sleep at night before you go to bed, before you put your head on your pillow, I need you to say this. The client is evil. Never trust the client. We must be more evil than the client. We must be better, faster, more nimble than our attackers. Never trust the client. Okay, so if you do that, you'll wake up the next day feeling happier. Okay, so let me just run this for you. All right. All right, oh, you can see that? Yay. All right, let's see. I think I have this up. All right, so I'll just up arrow. Okay, so I'm going to run tests. Now, who says Selenium and end-to-end tests are slow? I mean, come on. We don't write all of these things in this context because it's slow. Shut it. Seriously. Like, there were 7 assertions. It talked to a server. It went back and forth through Node.js, made all those assertions on non-UI, but instead went through the API integration test, talking to just a simple endpoint, and then that's the result. That was pretty fast, right? So you can use Selenium to do this, and then let's look at some of the tests, right? Okay, so the first test I ran was non-auth API access. So I just go to the door, and I try to open the door. What should be the result? It should be seriously, bro, get out of here before I'm going to call cops. Okay, all right, so it called the cops on me because you can see that emoji. So no dice, okay. Then the second is we actually roll on to auth. We garner a API authentication context by actually logging in, okay? And then, yeah, that's a Selenium UI test. You click in the login, you enter the password, you hit the submit button, you wait for element to appear, and then poof, you're logged into the app. That's really no big thing, but we can party nonetheless. But then what happens is we start doing API tests. So this is like a little mock, the code I have is a mock credit card processing. So you just enter in your account number and then an amount. And then the backend API simply just negs that or it acts it. And so here's the nature of the tests that I executed, right? So I did a happy path. So we just got some credit card number and some valid payment amount. It was $100, whatever. Then the next test was a negative path with a negative payment amount. I mean, are you crazy? Negative $100? No, that's not going to fly. And then we just have that cute little puppy is omitted payment amount. And then fuzzy payment amount. Fuzzy payment amount is it puts the amount as, do you remember Downtown Julie Brown? Wubba wubba wubba, doodle doodle dee. So it put that text in there, and then we see what happens. Okay. All right, so we can look at some of the code here. So yeah, we basically have the good new order. and it just drops that off. But really what's interesting is we have this create order. Okay? So then the data island stuff kicks in, right? So we have this function that basically says, okay, browser, go and do stuff for me. Okay? And the do stuff is create the placeholder, execute the function with these parameters, and then execute data island says, oh, okay, I'll create this dynamic JavaScript. Okay? It creates this dynamic JavaScript and it injects it into the browser, and then the driver calls execute script in the context of the authenticated browser. Okay? And then what happens is it picks it up. We have this JavaScript called pickup the data island, so then it picks up the data for it, and then it parses it, and then it sends back a result. All right? So that's basically what it does. I have 7 assertions here. We can run them again real quick just to prove there was no sleight of hand. And it runs really fast against this API. Wow. OK, we'll go back to the presentation here. OK, so the conclusions, right? The conclusion is Selenium is not just a front-end testing tool. OK, it really is not. It is more than that. Selenium is a weapon. OK, it ensures quality, and it allows you to protect yourself from evil, hostility, malfeasance, and developer idiocy, especially the last one. I know a lot about that because I am one. One of the more fun things that ever happens in API testing is direct object access. Like, let's say you have monotonic increasing IDs and you leak that out as your primary selector and element. I mean, there's tons of databases out there, tons of IDs out there, and all you need to do is point Selenium, this Selenium weapon, at an API that's like that, and you basically can automate your way into a serious issue of compliance to that company because they've leaked all of their PHI and PII data based on incrementing some values and stuff like that. I mean, it's fun. So basically, Selenium allows you to garner the authentication context at the front door so that you then can perform full-stack headless integration tests. And thus, you can write more tests in the highest layers without having to switch testing stacks. I don't want to use your stupid Java framework. I want to use Selenium and JavaScript for tools for the web, by the web, with the web. And then, so that allows you to create your tests in a faster, more agile environment, and you can test faster and better, which is really what we want. And we want the devs to start doing this too. That's all I got. It's a fast presentation, but I'm open to questions.
Can we please get a round of applause? That was good too. Like,
Okay.
Yes. I want to just again, I know it takes a lot for people to come up here and speak, and people have different feelings about public speaking. If you all have a topic around Selenium that you're passionate about, we have a Google form out there in our SF Selenium group. Please apply. We'd love to hear your topics. We have time for some questions. Questions? Yes. I'm going to go to Rodrigo and come over to you.
Okay, so first, great presentation. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I also believe that UI automation is kind of, everyone says it's flaky, it's hard, and whatever, but I think it's maybe because we are not designing our tests in a proper way. That's why it's flaky and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations again. And now on the questions. So all your tests rely on the context of the browser, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you, I mean, all your tests need to authenticate? Like,
No.
how do you handle that?
No, you authenticate once. This is the whole premise, is that the browser logs in once. And it's the context of the browser that is preserved throughout the entire session. So you execute tests in the same context. And that context that is trying to invoke AJAX requests inside the browser uses that same authentication context that was garnered at the beginning of the test. So the beginning of the test, the setup is log into the site. And then it's an injection fest. You inject all the API calls into the browser to execute the scripts, and that when they do execute, it executes in the context of that authenticated browser.
So that API call is being made by the JavaScript code. Actually,
Inside the
you're not
browser.
getting a URL. You're
Inside
just
the browser.
executing JavaScript inside the browser.
Yes, inside the browser.
Great question. Raj?
Thank you, Tristan. You mentioned that Selenium is a weapon.
It is.
Okay. You also said that developer, it takes care of developers' EDRC.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
There's, okay, so if you know about OWASP, OWASP is like they publish a top 10 developer foibles. And it's so common that we need an organization like OWASP to continuously continuously remind us that these problems exist. And so that is the named developer idiocy, that these problems are mimetic throughout the entire ecosystem of companies and developers. And OWASP tries to combat it by calling them out. And so one, as I mentioned, is direct object access, where you garner an authentication context and you can crawl into someone else's user space because you're passing an ID that is unvalidated across an authentication context. And so developers make these kinds of mistakes like all the time. And that's what I characterize as developer idiocy. I know it's very harsh, but you know, I'm up here, I got the mic, so you know, and you don't.
Follow up.
I think that makes sense. I think if you look at the, in 1969, I wrote the first programming language, which was like Fortran 4 at UC Berkeley. And we had only less than 5 languages. The Fortran 4 was used by you know, all the scientific people, programmers, and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And we had about 6,000 human languages, like Mandarin, Sanskrit, or Hebrew, or you know. But I think today we have more than 60, more than the human languages where we write the code.
Yes.
Which is like a Ruby on Rails. So we got JavaScript, because these languages are coming, you know, left and right. So I think this is kind of interesting. I wanted your opinion if you were to have a concept of simplifying this thing, where you have to like EDRC of the developers, because these people are writing languages which are upper level languages.
Yes.
And they have no sense of compiler. The compiler is, you know, you still have to go through A/B testing and all this stuff. So I agree with you about these developers EDRC. So I think you got that right. I think developers are writing these codes which they have no sense of whether it's going to go through the compiler.
Yeah, they don't know if it's going to go through the compiler. They don't know what happens. They don't know what's underneath the hood. And it's the job of OWASP, unfortunate job of OWASP, to educate developers so that they can do things more safely and sanely through the normalization of business practices.
I have to say, because we host a few different meetups here, Kubernetes, Docker, Selenium, Appium, this is my favorite, because you ask great questions. We have time for one more, and then we're going to give you all a little bit of space to do some networking. In the back. Coming through. All right.
So I work on a JavaScript SDK at work. So I have to deal with stuff like this on a near daily basis. So my question is, I just kind of want to know why you went with like driver and kind of building it out yourself over something like, well, we use Karma, so it's like, why wouldn't you use something like that rather than just rather use Karma instead of building it yourself?
Yeah, so you're asking why I misappropriated Selenium.
A little bit. No, actually not really. I see the benefit of using Selenium because it's just faster.
Okay, we have developers in my organization that use Selenium. okay? And what I'm kind of just facetiously calling misappropriation is really not. I want to unify the tool set. I don't want to have a million tools in the organization. And I understand that, you know, heterogeneity kind of helps for better selection. Like, we don't want all Windows machines on our network, because when you know, a 0 day comes in, then the entire ecosystem is basically shut down, right? However, for development tools, I think the argument could be made is if we normalize the tool, then we don't have to go learn something else. And so there were a lot of people in my organization that knew Selenium to start out with. And so I figured this, again, facetious calling of misappropriation was appropriate. And I didn't want to go the headless way. I mean, all of my developers, they're great, but they already know that. And I didn't feel it was necessary to introduce a new headless vertical. I know they're out there. Look, I know you can drive you know, Chrome through what's its stuff, Cypress, right? I know you can. There are other headless basically solutions where you can kind of do this. But the same argument holds for, like, hey, why don't you just use Java, right? Because you have a plethora of Java services that are already stood up, and you have all these Java developers. Why don't you perform integration tests in Java? Well, the reason is because I wanted people to start using JavaScript. I wanted them intimated of what the front door looked like. The front door on a Java program looks a lot different than what the front door looks like on a JavaScript platform. So I want them to be more familiar with the tools and APIs that are readily available and standardized for talking with the front door. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a great experience. Thank you.